Intel sent us this new gaming handheld so we could test out Intel's new Arc G3 series processors. We found that it has the best graphics performance from a gaming handheld yet, so let's get into it. This is the MSI Claw 8 EX-AI Plus with Intel's new Arc G3 series processors, and it runs the flagship G3 Extreme chip from that new lineup. The G3 series is a line of chips built from the ground up to power new PC gaming handhelds. Please note, this is not a review of the MSI Claw itself, but I need to tell you about the price up front. The redesigned Claw costs a staggering $17.99. That's even higher than the $1,500 estimate that MSI gave me at Computex, and that price already drew shock reaction from gamers everywhere. Here's what we'll do. We will mainly be looking at the performance of the Arc G3 Extreme chip in here, but the reality is that these chips are tied to these handhelds. You can't get one without buying it inside the new MSI Claw or competing handheld from Acer or 1X Player, which are not likely to be much cheaper, if at all. Hardware component demand is what causes these high prices, so start saving now if you want a next-gen Windows handheld. But enough of that stuff. Let's put the handhelds aside and look at what we're actually dealing with under the hood. The Arc G3 series is built on Intel's Panther Lake architecture. Right now, the family consists of a base Arc G3 chip and the higher-end Arc G3 Extreme. So far, no handhelds we've seen are running the base chip, so it's all about the G3 Extreme. We've seen how well this architecture performs in laptops in 2026 due to its integrated graphics cores, but a handheld is a different beast. And the Arc G3 Extreme is slightly different than those laptop processors too. It packs 14 total cores and threads, and crucially, 12 Xe graphics cores as part of the Arc B390 integrated graphics processor. Previous Windows handhelds have relied on integrated graphics because fitting a discrete graphics chip into such a tiny chassis is a losing battle against physics and heat. Most earlier handhelds have run AMD's Ryzen Z1 and Z2 processors, with the exception of MSI's previous Claw. That used Intel's Lunar Lake 200V platform, which, graphically speaking, was not especially powerful. MSI has stuck with Intel again this time. The Arc B390 isn't going to outperform a laptop-grade NVIDIA GeForce discrete GPU, but it's more gaming ready than any past chip used in a handheld. Also, considering that this is a Windows device with solid processing power, you can use it for everyday computing stuff too. Feel free to hook it up to a wireless mouse, a keyboard, and connect the Claw to a display if you want to use it for more than just gaming. Now, to answer the real question, how does the Arc G3 Extreme perform in practice? I ran the new MSI Claw through our standard PC benchmark suite and compared the results against a few different kinds of laptops, as well as MSI's previous Claw handheld. The much bigger Lenovo Legion Pro 5 Gen 10 gaming laptop and its RTX 5060 are much more powerful, so it's not exactly a fair fight on paper, but keep in mind that it is the same price as the Claw. MSI's Katana 15, meanwhile, costs a fraction of the price at around $1,000. These laptops don't give you anything like the portable handheld design, of course, but if you're buying on the basis of performance per dollar, they are clear winners. And then there's the Dell XPS 14, which features the same Arc B390 graphics, and finally, the last generation Lunar Lake-based MSI Claw is included to show gen-on-gen improvement. Here are the first productivity scores. The Arc G3 Extreme posted impressive processing results on the whole, showing overall proficiency for non-gaming workloads. It's a little slower than the full-size laptops on average, but not always by much, and it even edged ahead in some cases. This is a nice showing for a handheld device. I also ran our standard battery test, which plays a video file on loop until the battery runs out, and the new MSI Claw clocked in at over 23 hours. Battery life will vary by device, but the Arc G3 Extreme is at least capable of going this long in a best-case battery scenario. That is good news for using it as a PC or entertainment device, but of course, that's not going to be anything like your experience while gaming. Real-world gaming is much more demanding and famously drains batteries quickly on handheld devices. Realistic open-world titles like Cyberpunk 2077 will leave you with only a few hours off the charger, and even then, that number will vary depending on your settings. Less demanding games like 2D titles or less graphic-intensive simulations will give you additional hours of runtime. Intel also included an endurance mode to target set frame rates in order to save battery too. Okay, so much for testing productivity stuff. Graphics and gaming are the bread and butter for this platform. The synthetic scores show a clear hierarchy, where the discrete GPUs in the gaming laptops are far out ahead of the Arc G3 Extreme. These scores are better than any past integrated graphics option used in a gaming handheld, but you can still see the raw power gap. Let's look at the gaming frame rates before drawing any further conclusions. There's a lot to take in here, but there is a pretty clear story. If you're pushing Cyberpunk 2077 or F1 2024 at high settings without any upscaling assistance, you're looking at around 30 frames per second on average with the Claw and the Arc G3 Extreme. The Call of Duty results look better, which shows you how much performance can vary by game and genre. The takeaway? Well, Cyberpunk 2077 is pretty much a worst-case gaming scenario. Today's most demanding games should be playable, and the Arc G3 Extreme perform better than what we've seen from past handhelds. But 30 frames per second is likely not what you'd hope for from a device with a 4-figure price. Compared to gaming laptops, this device can hang, and it's not like the Claw is selling for less than these PCs. If you're thinking it's unfair to pit the Arc G3 Extreme against gaming laptops, don't worry, I have another set of benchmarks for you. I put the MSI Claw against competing handhelds in another set of comparisons. Take a look. I ran with just 2 games here, Cyberpunk 2077 again, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. In addition to the Ultra and Ray Tracing Overdrive presets I used before, I also ran Cyberpunk on the Steam Deck Visual preset. This preset is a mix of settings that developer CD Projekt chose that should run well on the Steam Deck and other handheld devices. And note that the Steam Deck preset uses AMD's FSR as the upscaling method of choice. I'll talk more about Intel's version called XeSS soon, but for this portion I kept FSR rather than switching to XeSS to ensure that the data would be comparable to those older devices like the Steam Deck. I also ran Shadow of the Tomb Raider on the low preset to show you what frame rates you'll see in less demanding environments. If you thought the new Claw struggled on the hyper-demanding Cyberpunk test, compare it with the others here. It was the only handheld to average more than 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck preset, even with FSR upscaling, and the only one to average more than 30 frames per second on the Ultra preset. Again, this is one of the most demanding games around, and the Arc G3 Extreme shows some marked improvement here over older AMD-based models. The Shadow of the Tomb Raider chart shows a clear hierarchy too, and it suggests that you should generally expect quick performance on legacy games. In short, this is the best graphics performance from a gaming handheld yet, by a comfortable margin. Of course, you'd expect that compared to older hardware, and definitely considering the price of this machine. Oh, and I need to explain XeSS for more context. If you're worried about that performance, especially compared to laptops, it is only part of this story. Even laptops and larger systems struggle in some titles given the demands of modern games. Upscaling technologies like NVIDIA's DLSS, AMD's FSR, and Intel's XeSS are a bigger part of the discussion than ever. Like DLSS and FSR, XeSS uses a machine learning algorithm to upscale lower resolution renders into a sharper final image, which results in higher frame rates without taxing the hardware as hard. It also includes frame generation, which inserts artificially predicted frames between the real frames rendered by your hardware. With Intel's latest version, XeSS 3, available on this platform, you also get multi-frame generation. This can add up to 3 additional artificial frames between each pair of real frames, seriously boosting the end frame rate. Intel enabled XeSS 3 in drivers earlier this year, and any title that supports XeSS 2 gained access to 3 and multi-frame generation with the driver update. However, you must force on XeSS 3 through the Intel graphics software application. Currently, games don't have their own in-game setting that lets you choose between XeSS 2 and 3. In our typical F1 2024 testing that I showed you before, I used the in-game XeSS 2 setting. But I also wanted to see how much the version 3 and multi-frame generation helped this hardware. So I fired up Cyberpunk 2077 once again and ran some more tests. At those same Ultra settings, but with XeSS 2 activated to the balanced level, the frame rate jumped from that 35 frames per second frame rate before to an average of 56 frames per second. Next, I turned on frame generation with the same settings, and that boosted the average frame rate to 92 frames per second. Finally, I used the manual override to activate XeSS 3 and 4x multi-frame generation, which sent the frame rate soaring to 153 frames per second. Now, these are not the same as traditional performance games. You're basically choosing a set amount to increase the frame rate by with artificial frames, but the end result is much smoother. Now, with any upscaling technology comes some visual concessions. With just XeSS active, I don't think the image quality gets impacted much. The frame rate improvements are clearly worthwhile, and you have to remember you are playing on a handheld. Frame generation has more of a visual impact, potentially adding ghosting or blurring, and it's even more divisive than upscaling. A lot of gamers just hate the idea of artificial frames, but in the most demanding titles, playing on a device like this, with its limited horsepower because of its size, you may need to embrace frame gen to reach the frame rate you're after, or otherwise seriously lower your in-game settings. So what's the verdict? On one hand, the Arc G3 Extreme is a success. It's the best performing silicon for gaming handhelds that I've tested so far. It sets a new frame rate floor for demanding games that competing handhelds have struggled to reach, and it's a legitimate step forward for handheld gaming. On the other hand, the raw frame rates leave something to be desired, and that's even before considering the sky-high price of the machine that this chip is in. XeSS, if not frame generation, is a must for visually taxing titles. In fairness, that's the truth for a lot of much bigger PC setups too. Games these days are just demanding, but if you look at it from the point of view of performance per dollar, this device is a tough sell. It's for the enthusiasts who really want to take their games on the go. Talking about just the Arc G3 Extreme itself, the performance I saw so far is a notable step forward. It's nice to see modern games running this well on a gaming handheld, upscaling and all. With the G3 Extreme, Intel seems to have silicon for gaming handhelds moving in the right direction. Now, handheld makers, let's work on the price of these devices, okay? What's the most you'd pay for one of these handhelds? Let me know in the comments. I'm Matthew Buzzy, and for even more in-depth analysis, check out PCMag.com.